Massachusetts, officially the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. B is a state in the New England region of the northeastern United States. It borders the Atlantic Ocean and Gulf of Maine to its east, Connecticut and Rhode Island to its south, New Hampshire and Vermont to its north, and New York to its west. Massachusetts is the sixth smallest state by land area. With a 2024 U.S. Census Bureau estimated population of 7,136,171, 5 its highest estimated count ever, Massachusetts is the most populous state in New England, the 16th most populous in the United States, and the third most densely populated U.S. state, after New Jersey and Rhode Island. Massachusetts was a site of early English colonization. The Plymouth colony was founded in 1620 by the Pilgrims of Mayflower. In 1630, the Massachusetts Bay Colony, taking its name from the indigenous Massachusetts people, also established settlements in Boston and Salem. In 1692, the town of Salem and surrounding areas experienced one of America's most infamous cases of mass hysteria, the Salem witch trials. 49. In the late 18th century, Boston became known as the cradle of Liberty 50 for the agitation there that later led to the American Revolution. In 1786, Shays' Rebellion, a populist revolt led by disaffected American Revolutionary War veterans, influenced the United States Constitutional Convention. 51. Originally dependent on agriculture, fishing, and trade, 52. Massachusetts was transformed into a manufacturing center during the Industrial Revolution. 53. Before the American Civil War, the state was a center for the abolitionist, temperance, 54, and transcendentalist 55 movements. 56. During the 20th century, the state's economy shifted from manufacturing to services. 57. And in the 21st century, Massachusetts has become the global leader in biotechnology. 58. And also excels in artificial intelligence. 59. Engineering, higher education, finance, and maritime trade. 60. The state's capital and most populous city, as well as its cultural and financial center, is Boston. Other major cities are Worcester, Springfield, and Cambridge. Massachusetts is also home to the urban core of Greater Boston, the largest metropolitan area in New England and a region profoundly influential upon American history, academia, and the research economy. 61. Massachusetts has a reputation for social and political progressivism. 62. Becoming the only U.S. state with a right to shelter law, and the first U.S. state and one of the earliest jurisdictions in the world to legally recognize same-sex marriage. Harvard University in Cambridge is the oldest institution of higher learning in the United States. 64. With the largest financial endowment of any university in the world. 65. Both Harvard and MIT, also in Cambridge, are perennially ranked as either the most or among the most highly regarded academic institutions in the world. 66. Massachusetts public school students place among the top tier in the world in academic performance. 67. Massachusetts is the most educated 68 and one of the most highly developed and wealthiest U.S. states, ranking first in the percentage of population 25 and over with either a bachelor's degree or advanced degree. First on both the American Human Development Index and the Standard Human Development Index. First in per capita income, and first in median income, both by household and individually. 668. Consequently, Massachusetts typically ranks as the top U.S. state. 69. As well as the most expensive state for residents to live in. 70. Etymology of Massachusetts Bay Colony was named after the indigenous population, the Massachusetts or Massachusetts, whose name likely derived from the Wampanoag word Muswauchusett, segmented as Miss Vi, big plus watch, mountain plus, as diminutive plus, locative. 71. This word has been translated as near the Great Hill. 72. By the Blue Hills, at the Little Big Hill, or at the range of hills, in reference to the Blue Hills, namely, the Great Blue Hill, located on the boundary of Milton and Canton. 73-74. Massachusetts has also been represented as Massachusetts. This comes from the name of the Massachusetts hummock, meaning hill shaped like an arrowhead in Quincy, where Plymouth Colony Commander Miles Standish, a hired English military officer, and Squanto, member of the Patuxet Band of the Wampanoag people, who have since died off due to contagious diseases brought by colonists, met Chief Chickatawbut in 1621. 75-76. Although the designation Commonwealth forms part of the state's official name, it has no practical implications in modern times. 77. And Massachusetts has the same position and powers within the United States as other states. 78. John Adams may have chosen the word in 1779 for the second draft of what became the 1780 Massachusetts Constitution. Unlike the word state, the word Commonwealth had the connotation of a republic at the time. This was in contrast to the monarchy the former colonies were fighting against during the American Revolutionary War. The name state of Massachusetts Bay appeared in the first draft, which was ultimately rejected. It was also chosen to include the Cape Islands in reference to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket from 1780 to 1844. They were seen as additional and separate entities confined within the Commonwealth. 79. History. Main articles. History of Massachusetts and Native American tribes in Massachusetts. Pre-colonization Massachusetts was originally inhabited by tribes of the Algonquian language family, including the Wampanoag, Narragansett, Nipmuc, Pacotuck, Mayakan, and Massachusetts. 80-81. While cultivation of crops like squash and corn were an important part of their diet, the people of these tribes hunted, fished, and searched the forest for most of their food. 80 villagers lived in lodges called wigwams, as well as longhouses. 81. Tribes were led by male or female elders known as sachems. 82 colonial period main articles. Mayflower Compact, Plymouth Colony, Massachusetts Bay Colony, New England Confederation, Dominion of New England, and Province of Massachusetts Bay, Mayflower and Plymouth Harbor by William Housel, 1882. The Pilgrims founded Plymouth in 1620. In the early 1600s, European colonists caused virgin soil epidemics such as smallpox, measles, influenza, and perhaps leptospirosis in what is now known as the northeastern region of the United States. 83. 84. Between 1617 and 1619, a disease that was most likely smallpox killed approximately 90% of the Massachusetts Bay Native Americans. 85. The first English colonists in Massachusetts Bay Colony landed with Richard Vines and spent the winter in Biddeford Pool near Cape Porpoise. After 1820, the state of Maine in 1616. The Puritans arrived at Plymouth in 1620. This was the second permanent English colony in the part of North America that later became the United States after the Jamestown colony. The first Thanksgiving was celebrated by the Puritans after their first harvest in the New World and lasted for 3 days. They were soon followed by other Puritans who colonized the Massachusetts Bay Colony, now known as Boston, in 1630. 86. The Puritans believed the Church of England needed to be further reformed along Protestant Calvinist lines and experienced harassment due to the religious policies of King Charles I and high-ranking clergy, such as William Laud, who would become Charles's Archbishop of Canterbury, whom they feared were reintroducing Romish elements to the national church. 87. They decided to colonize to Massachusetts, intending to establish what they considered an ideal religious society. 88. The Massachusetts Bay Colony was colonized under a royal charter, unlike the Plymouth Colony, in 1629. 89. Both religious dissent and expansionism resulted in several new colonies being founded shortly after Plymouth and Massachusetts Bay, elsewhere in New England. The Massachusetts Bay banished dissenters such as in Hutchinson and Roger Williams due to religious and political conflict. In 1636, Williams colonized what is now known as Rhode Island, and Hutchinson joined him there several years later. Religious intolerance continued, and among those who objected to this later that century were the English Quaker preachers Alice and Thomas Curwen, who were publicly flogged and imprisoned in Boston in 1676. 9091, in 1646, John Winthrop the Younger established the Saugus Iron Works, which was the first integrated ironworks in North America. It included a blast furnace, forge, rolling mill, shear, slitter, and a quarter-ton trip hammer, all of which has been restored and is now a museum. By 1641, Massachusetts had expanded inland significantly. The Commonwealth acquired the Connecticut River Valley settlement of Springfield, which had recently disputed with and defected from its original administrators, the Connecticut colony. 92. This established Massachusetts' southern border in the west. 93. However, this became disputed territory until 1803 due to surveying problems, leading to the modern Southwick Jog. 90 for the Mammoth Juanita Panatom up Biblum God cover page shown, also called the Eliot Indian Bible, is the first Bible to have been printed in British North America. In 1652, the Massachusetts General Court authorized Boston silversmith John Hull to produce local coinage in shilling, sixpence, and threepence denominations to address a coin shortage in the colony. 95. Before that point, the colony's economy had been entirely dependent on barter and foreign currency, including English, Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, and counterfeit coins. 96. In 1661, shortly after the restoration of the British monarchy, the British government considered the Boston Mint to be treasonous. 97. However, the colony ignored the English demands to cease operations until at least 1682, when Hull's contract as Mintmaster expired, and the colony did not move to renew his contract or appoint a new Mintmaster. 98. The coinage was a contributing factor to the revocation of the Massachusetts Bay Colony Charter in 1684. 99. In 1691, the colonies of Massachusetts Bay and Plymouth were united along with present-day Maine, which had previously been divided between Massachusetts and New York into the province of Massachusetts Bay. 100. Shortly after, the new province's first governor, William Phipps, arrived. The Salem witch trials also took place, where a number of men and women were hanged for alleged witchcraft. 101. The most destructive earthquake known to date in New England occurred on November 18, 1755, causing considerable damage across Massachusetts. 102. The Revolutionary War Mine Articles, American Revolutionary War, Boston Campaign, Lee Resolution, United States Declaration of Independence, Northern Theater of the American Revolutionary War after Saratoga, Articles of Confederation Section Ratification, and Treaty of Paris, 1783. A 1910 painting of the Battle of Lexington, Massachusetts, was a center of the movement for independence from Great Britain. Colonists in Massachusetts had long had uneasy relations with the British monarchy, including open rebellion under the dominion of New England in the 1680s. 100. Protests against British attempts to tax the colonies after the French and Indian War ended in 1763 led to the Boston Massacre in 1770, and the 1773 Boston Tea Party escalated tensions. 104. In 1774, the Intolerable Acts targeted Massachusetts with punishments for the Boston Tea Party and further decreased local autonomy, increasing local dissent. 105. Anti-parliamentary activity by men such as Samuel Adams and John Hancock, followed by reprisals by the British government, were a primary reason for the unity of the 13 colonies and the outbreak of the American Revolution in 1775. 106. The first shots of the American Revolution were fired on Lexington Green in front of Buckman Tavern. The tavern is now a museum. John Adams was second president of the United States 1797 to 1801. The battles of Lexington and Concord were fought in Massachusetts in 1775 and initiated the American Revolutionary War. 107. George Washington, later the first president of the future country, took over what would become the Continental Army after the battle. His first victory was the Siege of Boston in the winter of 1775 to 76, after which the British were forced to evacuate the city. 108. The event is still celebrated in Suffolk County only every March 17th as Evacuation Day. 109 on the coast. Salem became a center for privateering. Although the documentation is incomplete, about 1,700 letters of marque, issued on a per-voyage basis, were granted during the American Revolution. Nearly 800 vessels were commissioned as privateers, which were credited with capturing or destroying about 600 British ships. 110, a 1779 5-shilling note issued by Massachusetts with the inscription, 5 shillings, shall be paid to the bearer of this bill by the first day of December, 1782, agreeable to an act of the General Court of said state. Within print of Sun, Rising. This 5-shilling note was issued by Massachusetts in 1779. Federal Period Maine Articles, Constitutional Convention United States, Admission to the Union, and List of U.S. states by date of admission to the Union. Bostonian John Adams, known as the Atlas of Independence. 111 was highly involved in both separation from Britain and the Constitution of Massachusetts, which effectively the Elizabeth Freeman and Quackwalker cases, as interpreted by William Cushing, made Massachusetts the first state to abolish slavery. David McCullough points out that an equally important feature was its placing for the first time the courts as a co-equal branch separate from the executive. 112. The Constitution of Vermont, adopted in 1777, represented the first partial ban on slavery among the states. Vermont became a state in 1791, but did not fully ban slavery until 1858 with the Vermont Personal Liberty Law. The Pennsylvania Gradual Abolition Act of 1781 made Pennsylvania the first state to abolish slavery by statute, the second English colony to do so, the first having been the colony of Georgia in 1735. Later, Adams was active in early American foreign affairs and succeeded Washington as the second president of the United States. His son, John Quincy Adams, also from Massachusetts, 114, would go on to become the nation's 6th president. The Friendship of Salem at Salem Maritime National Historic Site in Salem is a replica of an 18th century East Indian diamond. Salem was a major port and the spice trade was very lucrative, resulting in Salem having the highest per capita income in the United States in the early 1800s. The Friendship was owned by Giraffe Mile Pierce and Aaron Waite. Pierce's mansion in Salem is preserved by the Peabody Essex Museum. From 1786 to 1787, an armed uprising led by Revolutionary War veteran Daniel Shays, now known as Shays' Rebellion, wrought havoc throughout Massachusetts and ultimately attempted to seize the federal Springfield Armory. 51. The rebellion was one of the major factors in the decision to draft a stronger national constitution to replace the Articles of Confederation. 51. On February 6, 1788, Massachusetts became the 6th state to ratify the United States Constitution. 115 19th century Maine Articles, Missouri Compromise, and Massachusetts in the American Civil War. In 1820, Maine separated from Massachusetts and entered the Union as the 23rd state due to the ratification of the Missouri Compromise. 116 textile mills, such as the one depicted here in Lowell, made Massachusetts a leader in the Industrial Revolution. During the 19th century, Massachusetts became a national leader in the American Industrial Revolution, with factories around cities such as Lowell and Boston producing textiles and shoes, and factories around Springfield producing tools, paper, and textiles. 117, 118. The state's economy transformed from one based primarily on agriculture to an industrial one, initially making use of water power and later the steam engine to power factories. Canals and railroads were being used in the state for transporting raw materials and finished goods. 119. Horace Mann made the state's school system a national model. 122. Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson, both philosophers and writers from the state, also made major contributions to American philosophy. 123. Furthermore, members of the Transcendentalist movement within the state emphasized the importance of the natural world and emotion to humanity. 123. Although significant opposition to abolitionism existed early on in Massachusetts, resulting in anti-abolitionist riots between 1835 and 1837. 120. For abolitionist views, there gradually increased throughout the next few decades. 125. 126. Abolitionists John Brown and Sojourner Truth lived in Springfield and Northampton, respectively, while Frederick Douglass lived in Boston and Susan B. Anthony in Adams. The works of such abolitionists contributed to Massachusetts' actions during the Civil War. Massachusetts was the first state to recruit, train, and arm a black regiment with white officers, the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment. 127. In 1852, Massachusetts became the first state to pass compulsory education laws. 128. 20th century. Although the U.S. stock market had sustained steep losses the last week in October 1929, Tuesday, October 29th is remembered as the beginning of the Great Depression. The Boston Stock Exchange, drawn into the whirlpool of panic selling that beset the New York Stock Exchange, lost over 25% of its value in 2 days of frenzied trading. The BSE, nearly 100 years old at the time, had helped raise the capital that had funded many of the Commonwealth's factories, railroads, and businesses. 129. Governor of Massachusetts Frank G. Allen appointed John C. Hull the first Securities Director of Massachusetts. 130. 131. Hull would assume office in January 1930, and his term would end in 1936. 133. With the departure of several manufacturing companies, the state's industrial economy began to decline during the early 20th century. By the 1920s, competition from the American South and Midwest, followed by the Great Depression, led to the collapse of the three main industries in Massachusetts: textiles, shoemaking, and precision mechanics. 134. This decline would continue into the latter half of the 20th century. Between 1950 and 1979, the number of Massachusetts residents involved in textile manufacturing declined from 264,000 to 63,000. 135. The 1969 closure of the Springfield Armory, in particular, spurred an exodus of high-paying jobs from western Massachusetts, which suffered greatly as it deindustrialized during the century's last 40 years. 136. Massachusetts manufactured 3.4% of total United States military armaments produced during World War II, ranking 10th among the 48 states. 137. After the World War, the economy of eastern Massachusetts transformed from one based on heavy industry into a service-based economy. 138. Government contracts, private investment, and research facilities led to a new and improved industrial climate, with reduced unemployment and increased per capita income. Suburbanization flourished, and by the 1970s, the Route 128, Interstate 95 corridor was dotted with high-tech companies who recruited graduates of the area's many elite institutions of higher education. 139I. In 1987, the state received federal funding for the Central Artery Tunnel Project. Commonly known as the Big Dig, it was, at the time, the biggest federal highway project ever approved. 140. The project included making the Central Artery, part of Interstate 93, into a tunnel under downtown Boston, in addition to the rerouting of several other major highways. 141. Failed verification. The project was often controversial, with numerous claims of graft and mismanagement, and with its initial cost of $2.5 billion finalized at over $15 billion. Nonetheless, the Big Dig changed the face of downtown Boston 140 and connected areas that were once divided by elevated highway. Much of the raised Old Central Artery was replaced with the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Greenway. The project also improved traffic conditions along several routes. 141 politician John F. Kennedy was a Massachusetts native and 35th President of the United States from 1961 to 1963. The Kennedy family was prominent in 20th century Massachusetts politics. The children of businessman and Ambassador Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. included John F. Kennedy, who was a senator and U.S. president before his assassination in 1963, Ted Kennedy, a senator from 1962 until his death in 2009, 142, and Eunice Kennedy Shriver, a co-founder of the Special Olympics, 143. In 1966, Massachusetts became the first state to directly elect an African American to the U.S. Senate with Edward Brooke. 144. George H.W. Bush, 41st President of the United States, 1989 to 1993, was born in Milton in 1924. 145 other Massachusetts politicians on the national level included Joseph W. Martin Jr., Speaker of the House from 1947 to 1949 and 1953 to 1955, and leader of House Republicans from 1939 to 1959, where he was the only Republican to serve as Speaker between 1931 and 1995. 1. John W. McCormick, Speaker of the House in the 1960s, and Tip O'Neill, whose service as Speaker of the House from 1977 to 1987 was the longest continuous tenure in United States history. 147 21st century. On May 17, 2004, Massachusetts became the first state in the U.S. to legalize. This followed the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court's decision in Goodrich v. Department of Public Health in November 2003, which determined that the exclusion of same-sex couples from the right to a civil marriage was unconstitutional. 63. In 2004, Massachusetts Senator John Kerry, who had won the Democratic nomination for President of the United States, lost to incumbent George W. Bush. 8 years later, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney, the Republican nominee, lost to incumbent Barack Obama in 2012. Another 8 years later, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren became a frontrunner in the Democratic primaries for the 2020 presidential election. The explosions killed 3 people and injured an estimated 260 for others. 149. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, later identified the suspects as brothers Joe Kartz Arnave and Tane Merlance Arnave. The ensuing manhunt ended on April 19th when thousands of law enforcement officers searched a 20-block area of nearby Watertown. Massachusetts is the 7th smallest state in the United States, 152. It is located in the New England region of the northeastern United States. 153. It has an area of 10,555 square miles, 27,340 square kilometers, 150 for 25.7% of which is water. 155. Several large bays distinctly shape its coast, giving it the nickname the Bay State. 156. Boston is its largest city. 157. Despite its small size, Massachusetts features numerous topographically distinctive regions. The large coastal plain of the Atlantic Ocean in the eastern section of the state contains Greater Boston, along with most of the state's population, 61, as well as the distinctive Cape Cod Peninsula. To the west lies the hilly, rural region of central Massachusetts, and beyond that, the Connecticut River Valley. Along the western border of western Massachusetts lies the highest elevated part of the state, the Berkshires, forming a portion of the northern terminus of the Appalachian Mountains. Citation needed. The U.S. National Park Service administers a number of natural and historical sites in Massachusetts, 158, along with 12 National Historic Sites, areas, and corridors, The National Park Service also manages the Cape Cod National Seashore and the Boston Harbor Islands National Recreation Area. 158. In addition, the Department of Conservation and Recreation maintains a number of parks, trails, and beaches throughout Massachusetts. 159. Ecology's primary biome of inland Massachusetts is temperate deciduous forest. 160. Although much of Massachusetts had been cleared for agriculture, leaving only traces of old-growth forest in isolated pockets, secondary growth has regenerated in many rural areas as farms have been abandoned. 161. Forests cover around 60% of Massachusetts. 162. The areas most affected by human development include the greater Boston area in the east and the Springfield metropolitan area in the west, although the latter includes agricultural areas throughout the Connecticut River Valley. 163. There are 219 endangered species in Massachusetts. 160 for a number of species are doing well in the increasingly urbanized Massachusetts. Peregrine falcons utilize office towers in larger cities as nesting areas. 165. And the population of coyotes, whose diet may include garbage and roadkill, has been increasing in recent decades. 166. White-tailed deer, raccoons, wild turkeys, and eastern gray squirrels are also found throughout Massachusetts. In more rural areas in the western part of Massachusetts, larger mammals, such as moose and black bears, have returned, largely due to reforestation following the regional decline in agriculture. 167. Massachusetts is located along the Atlantic Flyway, a major route for migratory waterfowl along the eastern coast. 168. Lakes in central Massachusetts provide habitat for many species of fish and waterfowl, but some species, such as the common loon, are becoming rare. 169. A significant population of long-tailed ducks winter off Nantucket. Small offshore islands and beaches are home to roseate terns and are important breeding areas for the locally threatened piping plover. 170 protected areas, such as the Monomoy National Wildlife Refuge, provide critical breeding habitat for shorebirds and a variety of marine wildlife, including a large population of gray seals. Since 2009, there has been a significant increase in the number of great white sharks spotted and tagged in the coastal waters off of Cape Cod. 171, 172, 173 freshwater fish species in Massachusetts include bass, carp, catfish, and trout, while saltwater species such as Atlantic cod, haddock, and American lobster populate offshore waters. 170 for other marine species include harbor seals, the endangered North Atlantic right whales, as well as humpback whales, fin whales, minke whales, and Atlantic white-sided dolphins. 1. The European corn borer, a significant agricultural pest, was first found in North America near Boston, Massachusetts in 1917. 176. Climate Maine article, Climate of Massachusetts. Most of Massachusetts has a humid continental climate, with cold winters and warm summers. Far southeast coastal areas are the broad transition zone to humid subtropical climates. The warm to hot summers render the oceanic climate rare in this transition, only applying to exposed coastal areas, such as on the peninsula of Barnstable County. The climate of Boston is quite representative for the Commonwealth, characterized by summer highs of around 81 F, 27 C, and winter highs of 35 F to Celsius, and is quite wet. Frosts are frequent all winter, even in coastal areas due to prevailing inland winds. Boston has a relatively sunny climate for a coastal city at its latitude, averaging over 2,600 hours of sunshine a year. Climate Change Maine article, Climate change in Massachusetts. Climate change in Massachusetts will affect both urban and rural environments, including forestry, fisheries, agriculture, and coastal development. 178, 179, 180. The Northeast is projected to warm faster than global average temperatures by 2035, according to the U.S. Global Change Research Program, The Northeast is projected to be more than 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit to see warmer on average than during the pre-industrial era. 180 as of August 2016, the EPA reports that Massachusetts has warmed by over 2 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1.1 degrees Celsius. 181 shifting temperatures also result in the shifting of rainfall patterns and the intensification of precipitation events. To that end, average precipitation in the Northeast United States has risen by 10% from 1895 to 2011, and the number of heavy precipitation events has increased by 70% during that time. 181. These increased precipitation patterns are focused in the winter and spring. Increasing temperatures coupled with increasing precipitation will result in earlier snow melts and subsequent drier soil in the summer months. 180 to the shifting climate in Massachusetts will result in a significant change to the state's built environment and ecosystems. In Boston alone, costs of climate change-related storms will result in $5 to $100 billion in damage. 181 warmer temperatures will also disrupt bird migration and flora blooming. With these changes, deer populations are expected to increase, resulting in a decrease in underbrush, which smaller fauna use as camouflage. Additionally, rising temperatures will increase the number of reported Lyme disease cases in the state. Ticks can transmit the disease once temperatures reach 45 degrees, so shorter winters will increase the window of transmission. These warmer temperatures will also increase the prevalence of Asian tiger mosquitoes, which often carry the West Nile virus. 181 to fight this change. The Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs has outlined a path to decarbonize the state's economy. On April 22, 2020, Kathleen A. Theaherides, the state's Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, released a determination of statewide emissions limits for 2050. In her letter, Theaherides stresses that as of 2020, the Commonwealth has experienced property damage attributable to climate change of more than $60 billion. To ensure that the Commonwealth experiences warming no more than 1.5 C of pre-industrialization levels, the state will work towards two goals by 2050 to achieve net zero emissions and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 85% overall. 183. At the 2020 U.S. Census, Massachusetts had a population of over 7 million, a 7.4% increase since the 2010 United States Census. 197, 198. As of 2015, Massachusetts was estimated to be the third most densely populated U.S. state, with 871.0 people per square mile, 199 behind New Jersey and Rhode Island. In 2014, Massachusetts had 1,011,811 foreign-born residents, or 15% of the population. 199. As of July 2024, the state's population was estimated to have grown to 7,136,171. 5 most Massachusetts residents live within the Boston metropolitan area, also known as Greater Boston, which includes Boston and its proximate surroundings, but also extending to Greater Lowell and to Worcester. The Springfield metropolitan area, also known as Greater Springfield, is also a major center of population. Demographically, the center of population of Massachusetts is located in the town of Natick, 200-201, like the rest of the northeastern United States. The population of Massachusetts has continued to grow in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Massachusetts is the fastest growing state in New England and the 25th fastest growing state in the United States. 200 to population growth has been driven primarily by the relatively high quality of life and a large higher education system. 200 to foreign immigration is also a factor in the state's population growth, causing the state's population to continue to grow as of the 2010 census, particularly in Massachusetts' gateway cities, where costs of living are lower. 200 for 40% of foreign immigrants were from Central or South America, according to a 2005 Census Bureau study, with many of the remainder from Asia. Many residents who have settled in Greater Springfield claim Puerto Rican descent. 203 Many areas of Massachusetts showed relatively stable population trends between 2000 and 2010. 204 exurban Boston and coastal areas grew the most rapidly, while Berkshire County in far western Massachusetts and Barnstable County on Cape Cod were the only counties to lose population as of the 2010 census. 204 in 2018, the top countries of origin for Massachusetts immigrants were China, the Dominican Republic, Brazil, India, and Haiti. 205 by sex, 48.4% were male, and 51.6% were female in 2014. In terms of age, 79.2% were over 18 and 14.8% were over 65. According to HUD's 2022 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, there were an estimated 15,507 homeless people in Massachusetts. 207, the state's most populous ethnic group, non-Hispanic white, has declined from 95.4% in 1970 to 67.6% in 2020, 210. As of 2011, non-Hispanic whites were involved in 63.6% of all the births, 211, while 36.4% of the population of Massachusetts younger than age 1 was minorities, at least one parent who was not non-Hispanic white. 212. One major reason for this is that non-Hispanic whites in Massachusetts recorded a total fertility rate of 1.36 in 2017, the second lowest in the country after neighboring Rhode Island. 213. As late as 1795, the population of Massachusetts was nearly 95% of English ancestry. 214. During the early and mid-19th century, immigrant groups began arriving in Massachusetts in large numbers, first from Ireland in the 1840s. 215. Today, the Irish and part Irish are the largest ancestry group in the state at nearly 25% of the total population. Others arrived later from Quebec as well as places in Europe, such as Italy, Portugal, and Poland. 216. In the early 20th century, a large percentage of black immigrants were from the Caribbean island of Barbados and mostly settled in Cambridge and Boston's South End. In the Great Migration of 1910 to 1970, African Americans migrated to Massachusetts, although in somewhat fewer numbers than many other northern states. 217. Later in the 20th century, immigration from Latin America increased considerably. More than 156,000 Chinese Americans made their home in Massachusetts in 2014. 218. And Boston hosts a growing Chinatown accommodating heavily traveled Chinese-owned bus lines to and from Chinatown. Manhattan in New York City, Massachusetts also has large Dominican, Puerto Rican, Haitian, Cape Verdean, and Brazilian populations. 219. Boston's South End and Jamaica Plain are both gay villages, as is nearby Provincetown, Massachusetts on Cape Cod. 220. Boston's Chinatown has a Pai Fang entrance gate and is home to many Chinese and Vietnamese people. Boston's Gay Pride March is held annually in June. In 2004, Massachusetts became the first U.S. state to legalize same-sex marriage. The largest ancestry group in Massachusetts are the Irish, 20.5% of the population, who live in significant numbers throughout the state, but form more than 40% of the population along the South Shore. In Norfolk and Plymouth counties, in both counties overall, Irish Americans comprise more than 30% of the population. Italians form the second largest ethnic group in the state, 13.5%, but form a plurality in some suburbs north of Boston and in a few towns in the Berkshires. English Americans, the third largest 11.4% group, form a plurality in some western towns. French and French Canadians also form a significant part, 10.7%, 221, with sizable populations in Bristol, Hampton, and Worcester counties, along with Middlesex County, especially concentrated in the areas surrounding Lowell, and Lawrence, 222,223. Lowell is home to the second largest Cambodian community of the nation, 224. Massachusetts is home to a small community of Greek Americans as well, which according to the American Community Survey there are 83, 701 of them scattered along the state, 1.2% of the total state population, 225. There are also several populations of Native Americans in Massachusetts. The Wampanoag tribe maintains reservations at Aquina on Martha's Vineyard and at Mashpee on Cape Cod, with an ongoing native language revival project underway since 1993, while the Nipmuc maintained state-recognized reservations in the central part of the state, including one at Grafton. 226. Massachusetts has avoided many forms of racial strife seen elsewhere in the U.S., but examples, such as the successful electoral showings of the nativist, mainly anti-Catholic, Know-Nothings in the 1850s, 227. The controversial Sacco and Vanzetti executions in the 1920s, 228. And Boston's opposition to desegregation busing in the 1970s. 229. The U.S. Census treats Hispanic, Latino as in. This table excludes Latinos from the racial categories and assigns them to a separate category. Hispanics, Latinos may be of any race, and NH means non-Hispanic. Religion. Massachusetts was founded and settled by Brownist Puritans in 1620, 87, and soon after by other groups of separatists, dissenters, nonconformists, and independents from 17th century England. 236. A majority of people in Massachusetts today remain Christians. 199. The descendants of the Puritans belong to many different churches. In the direct line of inheritance are the various congregational churches, the United Church of Christ and congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association. The headquarters of the Unitarian Universalist Association, long located on Beacon Hill, is now located in South Boston. 237. 238. Many Puritan descendants also dispersed to other Protestant denominations, some disaffiliated along with Roman Catholics and other Christian groups in the wake of modern secularization. 239. As of the 2014 Pew study, Christians made up 57% of the state's population, with Protestants making up 21% of them. Roman Catholics made up 30% and now predominate because of massive immigration from primarily Catholic countries and regions, chiefly Ireland, Italy, Poland, Portugal, Quebec, and Latin America. Both Protestant and Roman Catholic communities have been in decline since the late 20th century due to the rise of irreligion in New England. It is the most irreligious region of the country, along with the western United States. For comparison and contrast, however, in 2020, the Public Religion Research Institute determined 67% of the population were Christian, reflecting a slight increase of religiosity. 240. A significant Jewish population immigrated to the Boston and Springfield areas between 1880 and 1920. Jews make up 3% of the population. Mary Baker Eddy made the Boston Mother Church of Christian Science serve as the world headquarters of this new religious movement. Buddhists, pagans, Hindus, Seventh-day Adventists, Muslims, and Mormons may also be found. The Satanic Temple has its headquarters in Salem, Kripalu Center in Stockbridge, the Shaolin Meditation Temple in Springfield, and the Insight Meditation Center in Barre are examples of non-Abrahamic religious centers in Massachusetts. According to 2010 data from the Association of Religion Data Archives, ARDA, the largest single denominations are the Catholic Church with 2,940,199 adherents, the United Church of Christ with 86,639 adherents, and the Episcopal Church with 81,999 adherents, 241. In 2014, 32% of the population identified as having no religion, 242. In a separate 2020 study, 23% of the population identified as irreligious, and 67% of the population identified as Christians, including 26% as white Protestants and 20% as white Catholics. 240 as of 2022. A plurality of Massachusettsans were irreligious, 240, and the state is considered to be a part of the unchurched belt. 243 Native American tribes. What became Massachusetts was originally inhabited by the Wampanoag, the Nipmuc, the Massachusetts, the Pocumtuck, the Nazi, the Pennacook, and a few other tribes. 244, 245, some of these tribes are still represented among the population of the state. The largest Native American tribes in Massachusetts, according to the 2010 census, are listed in this table. 246. Education. In 2018, Massachusetts' overall educational system was ranked the top among all 50 U.S. states by U.S. News and World Report. 248. Massachusetts was the first state in North America to require municipalities to appoint a teacher or establish a grammar school with the passage of the Massachusetts Education Law of 1647. 249, and 19th century reforms pushed by Horace Mann laid much of the groundwork for contemporary universal public education. 250, 251, which was established in 1852. 128. Massachusetts is home to the oldest school in continuous existence in North America, the Roxbury Latin School, founded in 1645, as well as the country's oldest public elementary school, the Mather School, founded in 1639. 252, its oldest high school, Boston Latin School, founded in 1635. 253, its oldest continuously operating boarding school, the Governor's Academy, founded in 1763. 254, its oldest college, Harvard University, founded in 1636. 255, and its oldest women's college, Mount Holyoke College, founded in 1837. 256. Massachusetts is also home to the highest-ranked private high school in the United States, Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, which was founded in 1778. 257. Massachusetts per-student public expenditure for elementary and secondary schools was 8th in the nation in 2012 at $14,840 for dollars. 258. In 2013, Massachusetts scored highest of all the states in math and third highest in reading on the National Assessment of Educational Progress. 259. The state's public school students are in the top tier of global academic performance. 67. In 2022, Massachusetts was first or second in the reading and mathematics average scores and proficiency percentages of the evaluated 4th and 8th graders. 260. Massachusetts hosts 121 institutions of higher education. 261. Harvard University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, both located in Cambridge, consistently rank among the world's best private universities and universities in general. 262. In addition to Harvard and MIT, several other Massachusetts universities rank in the top 50 at the undergraduate level nationally in the widely cited rankings of U.S. News and World Report. Tufts University number 27, Boston College number 32, Brandeis University number 34, Boston University number 37, and Northeastern University number 40. Massachusetts is also home to 3 of the top 5 U.S. News and World Report's best liberal arts colleges: Williams College number 1, Amherst College number 2, and Wellesley College number 4. 263. It is also home to the oldest Catholic liberal arts college, College of the Holy Cross number 33. 260. For Boston Architectural College is New England's largest private college of spatial design. The Public University of Massachusetts, nicknamed UMass, features 5 campuses in the state, with its flagship campus in Amherst, which enrolls more than 25,000. 265, 266 as of 2021. Massachusetts has the highest percentage of adults over the age of 25 with a bachelor's degree, 46.6%, and a graduate degree, 21.7%, of any state in the country. Economy. See also list of Massachusetts locations by per capita income and category. Economy of Massachusetts. The United States Bureau of Economic Analysis estimates that the Massachusetts gross state product in 2020 was $584 billion, 267. The per capita personal income in 2012 was $53,221, making it the third highest state in the nation, 268. As of January 2023, Massachusetts state general minimum wage is $15 per hour, while the minimum wage for tipped workers is $6.75 an hour, with a guarantee that employers will pay the difference should a tipped employee's hourly wage not meet or exceed the general minimum wage, $269. This wage was set to increase to a general minimum of $15 per hour and a tipped worker minimum of $6.75 per hour in January 2023, as part of a series of minimum wage amendments passed in 2018 that saw the minimum wage increase slowly every January up to 2023. 270 in 2015, 12 Fortune 500 companies were located in Massachusetts. Liberty Mutual, Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance Company, TJX Companies, General Electric, Raytheon, American Tower, Global Partners, Thermo Fisher Scientific, State Street Corporation, Biogen, Eversource Energy, and Boston Scientific. 271. See NBC's list of top states for business for 2023 has recognized Massachusetts as the 15th best state in the nation for business. 272, and for the second year in a row in 2016, the state was ranked by Bloomberg as the most innovative state in America, 273. According to a 2013 study by Phoenix Marketing International, Massachusetts had the sixth largest number of millionaires per capita in the United States, with a ratio of 6.73%. 274 billionaires living in the state include past and present leaders and related family of local companies such as Fidelity Investments, New Balance, Kraft Group, Boston Scientific, and the former Continental Cablevision. 275. Massachusetts has 3 foreign trade zones: the Massachusetts Port Authority of Boston, the Port of New Bedford, and the City of Holyoke. 276. Boston Logan International Airport is the busiest airport in New England, serving 33.4 million total passengers in 2015 and witnessing rapid growth in international air traffic since 2010. 277 sectors vital to the Massachusetts economy include higher education, biotechnology, information technology, finance, healthcare, tourism, manufacturing, and defense. The Route 128 corridor and Greater Boston continue to be a major center for venture capital investment. 278, and high technology remains an important sector. In recent years, tourism has played an ever-important role in the state's economy, with Boston and Cape Cod being the leading destinations. 279 other popular tourist destinations include Salem, Plymouth, and the Berkshires. Massachusetts is the 6th most popular tourist destination for foreign travelers, 280. In 2010, the Great Places in Massachusetts Commission published 1,000 Great Places in Massachusetts that identified 1,000 sites across the Commonwealth to highlight the diverse historic, cultural, and natural attractions. 281. Sunset at Brewster on Cape Cod Bay. While manufacturing comprised less than 10% of Massachusetts' gross state product in 2016, the Commonwealth ranked 16th in the nation in total manufacturing output in the United States, 282. This includes a diverse array of manufactured goods, such as medical devices, paper goods, specialty chemicals and plastics, telecommunications and electronics equipment, and machine components. 283. 280 for the more than 33,000 nonprofits in Massachusetts employ 1/6 of the state's Workforce are 285. In 2007, Governor Deval Patrick signed into law a state holiday, Nonprofit Awareness Day. 286 in February 2017. U.S. News and World Report ranked Massachusetts the best state in the United States based upon 60 metrics including healthcare, education, crime, infrastructure, opportunity, economy, and government. Massachusetts ranked number 1 in education, number 2 in healthcare, and number 5 in the handling of the economy. 287 Agriculture Maine article. Agriculture in Massachusetts is of 2012. There were 7,755 farms in Massachusetts encompassing a total of 523,517 acres to 1,120 square kilometers, averaging 67.5 acres, 27.3 hectares apiece. 288. In the 1970s, the Commonwealth ranked as a relatively high-tax state, gaining the pejorative nickname Taxachusetts. This was followed by a round of tax limitations during the 1980s, a conservative period in American politics including Proposition 2.5. 295 as of January 1, 2020. Massachusetts has a flat-rate personal income tax of 5.00%. 296 after a 2000 voter referendum to eventually lower the rate to 5.0%, 297, as amended by the legislature. There is a tax exemption for income below a threshold that varies from year to year. The corporate income tax rate is 8.8%, 299, and the short-term capital gains tax rate is 12%. 300. An unusual provision allows filers to voluntarily pay at the pre-referendum 5.85% income tax rate, which is done by between 1 and 2,000 taxpayers per year. 301. The state imposes a 6% to 5% sales tax, 299, on retail sales of tangible personal property except for groceries, clothing up to $175, and periodicals. 302. The sales tax is charged on clothing that costs more than $175 for the amount exceeding $175. 302. Massachusetts also charges a use tax when goods are bought from other states and the vendor does not remit Massachusetts sales tax. Taxpayers report and pay this on their income tax forms or dedicated forms, though there are safe harbor amounts that can be paid without tallying up actual purchases, except for purchases over $1,000. 302. There is no inheritance tax and limited Massachusetts estate tax related to federal estate tax collection. 300. Enter further information. Solar power in Massachusetts, wind power in Massachusetts, and category, energy in Massachusetts. Massachusetts' electricity generation market was made competitive in 1998, enabling retail customers to change suppliers without changing utility companies. 303. In 2018, Massachusetts consumed 1,459 trillion BTU, 300 for making it the 7th lowest state in terms of consumption of energy per capita, and 31% of that energy came from natural gas. 304. In 2014 and 2015, Massachusetts was ranked as the most energy-efficient state in the United States, 305-306, while Boston is the most efficient city, 307, but it had the 4th highest average residential retail electricity prices of any state, 304. In 2018, renewable energy was about 7.2% of total energy consumed in the state, ranking 34th, 304. Transportation pages. Massachusetts Department of Transportation, Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, and category Transportation in Massachusetts. See also plug-in electric vehicles in Massachusetts. Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority serves Greater Boston. For federal funding purposes, Massachusetts has 10 regional metropolitan planning organizations and 3 non-metropolitan planning organizations covering the remainder of the state. 308 statewide planning is handled by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. Transportation is the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions by economic sector in Massachusetts. 309 regional public transportation. The Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority MBTA, also known as the T310, operates public transportation in the form of subway 311 bus, 312, and ferry 313 systems in the Metro Boston area. 15 other regional transit authorities provide public transportation in the form of bus services in the rest of the state. 314 for heritage railways are also in operation. Long Distance Rail and Track operates several intercity rail lines in Massachusetts. Boston South Station serves as the terminus for 3 lines, namely the high-speed Acela Express, which links to cities such as Providence, New Haven, New York City, and eventually Washington, D.C. The Northeast Regional, which follows the same route but includes many more stops, and also continues further south to Newport News in Virginia, and the Lake Shore Limited, which runs westward to Worcester, Springfield, and eventually Chicago. 320 Boston's other major station, North Station, serves as the southern terminus for Amtrak's Downeaster, which connects to Portland and Brunswick in Maine. 319 outside of Boston, Amtrak connects several cities across Massachusetts along the aforementioned Acela, Northeast Regional, Lake Shore Limited, and Downeaster lines, as well as other routes in central and western Massachusetts. The Amtrak Hartford line connects Springfield to New Haven, operated in conjunction with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, and the Valley Flyer runs a similar route but continues further north to Greenfield. Several stations in western Massachusetts are also served by the Vermonter, which connects St. Albans, Vermont to Washington, D.C. 319. Amtrak carries more passengers between Boston and New York than all airlines combined, about 50% of. Market share in 2012, 321, but service between other cities is less frequent. There, more frequent intercity service is provided by private bus carriers, including Peter Pan bus lines headquartered in Springfield, Greyhound lines, Urbis, Olpus, and Plymouth and Brockton Street Railway. Various Chinatown bus lines depart for New York from South Station in Boston. 322 MBTA commuter rail services run throughout the larger Greater Boston area, including service to Worcester, Fitchburg, Haverhill, Newburyport, Lowell, and Kingston. 323. This overlaps with the service areas of neighboring regional transportation authorities. As of the summer of 2013, the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority, in collaboration with the MBTA and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, MASTT, is operating the Cape Flyer, providing passenger rail service between Boston and Cape Cod. 325 ferrymost ports north of Cape Cod are served by Boston Harbor Cruises, which operates ferry services in and around Greater Boston under contract with the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. Several routes connect the downtown area with Hingham, Hull, Winthrop, Salem, Logan Airport, Charlestown, and some of the islands located within the harbor. The same company also operates seasonal service between Boston and Provincetown. 326 on the southern shore of the state. Several different passenger ferry lines connect Martha's Vineyard to ports along the mainland, including Woods Hole, Hyannis, New Bedford, and Falmouth, all in Massachusetts, as well as North Kingstown in Rhode Island, Highlands in New Jersey, and New York City in New York. 327. Similarly, several different lines connect Nantucket to ports including Hyannis, New Bedford, Harwich, and New York City. 328. Service between the two islands is also offered. The dominant companies serving these routes include Seastreak, Highline Cruises, and the Steamship Authority, the latter of which regulates all passenger services in the region and is also the only company permitted to offer freight ferry services to the islands. 329 other ferry connections in the state include a water taxi connecting various points in Fall River, 330 seasonal ferry service connecting Plymouth to Provincetown, 331, and a service between New Bedford and Cuttyhunk. 330 to rail freight. See also List of Massachusetts railroads as of 2018. A number of freight railroads were operating in Massachusetts, with Class 1 Railroad CSX being the largest carrier, and another Class 1, Norfolk Southern, serving the state via its Pan Am Southern Joint Partnership. Several regional and short-line railroads also provide service and connect with other railroads. 333. Massachusetts has a total of 1,110 miles, 1,790 kilometers of freight trackage in operation. 334. 335 service. Further information. List of airports in Massachusetts. Lynn International Airport in Boston is the largest passenger volume airport in New England. Boston Logan International Airport served 33.5 million passengers in 2015, up from 31.6 million in 2014, 277 through 103 gates. 336, 337 Logan, Hanscom Field in Bedford, and Worcester Regional Airport are operated by Massport, an independent state transportation agency. 337, Massachusetts has 39 public-use airfields, 338, and more than 200 private landing spots. 339. Some airports receive funding from the Aeronautics Division of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration. The FAA is also the primary regulator of Massachusetts air travel. 340 roads. Prominent roads and cities in Massachusetts are a total of 36,800 miles, 59,200 kilometers of interstates and other highways in Massachusetts. 341 Interstate 90 I-90, also known as the Massachusetts Turnpike, is the longest interstate in Massachusetts. The route travels 136 miles, 219 kilometers, generally west to east, entering Massachusetts at the New York state line in the town of West Stockbridge, and passes just north of Springfield, just south of Worcester, and through Framingham, before terminating near Logan International Airport in Boston. 342 other major interstates include I-91, which travels generally north and south along the Connecticut River, I-93, which travels north and south through central Boston, then passes through Methuen before entering New Hampshire, and I-95, which connects Providence, Rhode Island with Greater Boston, forming a partial loop concurrent with Route 128 around the more urbanized areas before continuing north along the coast into New Hampshire. 343 I-95 forms a wide loop around the outer edge of Greater Boston. Other major interstates in Massachusetts include I-291, I-391, I-84, I-195, I-395, I-290, and I-190. Major non-interstate highways in Massachusetts include U.S. routes 1, 3, 6, and 20, and state routes 2, 3, 9, 24, and 128. A great majority of interstates in Massachusetts were constructed during the mid-20th century, and at times were controversial, particularly the intent to route I-95 northeastwards from Providence, Rhode Island, directly through central Boston, first proposed in 1948. Opposition to continued construction grew, and in 1970 Governor Francis W. Sargent issued a general prohibition on most further freeway construction within the I-95, Route 128 loop in the Boston area. 344, a massive undertaking to bring I-93 underground in downtown Boston, called the Big Dig, brought the city's highway system under public scrutiny for its high cost and construction quality. 140, cities, towns, and counties. Mine articles. Government of Massachusetts Section County Government and Government of Massachusetts Section Municipal Government as of 2023. 390. There are 292 towns and 59 cities in Massachusetts. 11 communities which call themselves towns are, by law, cities, since they have traded the town meeting form of government for a mayor-council or manager-council form. 390 to Boston is the state capital in Massachusetts. The population of the city proper is 692,600, 393, and Greater Boston, with a population of 4,873,019, is the 11th largest metropolitan area in the nation, 394. Other cities with a population over 100,000 include Worcester, Springfield, Lowell, Cambridge, Brockton, Quincy, New Bedford, and Lynn. Plymouth is the largest municipality in the state by land area, followed by Middleborough. 391 Massachusetts, along with the 5 other New England states, features the local governmental structure known as the New England Town. 395. In this structure, incorporated towns as opposed to townships or counties hold many of the responsibilities and powers of local government. 395. Most of the county governments were abolished by the state of Massachusetts beginning in 1997, including Middlesex County. 396, the largest county in the state by population. 397, 398, the voters of these now defunct counties elect only sheriffs and registers of deeds, who are part of the state government. Other counties have been reorganized, and a few still retain county councils. 399. Mediacy also. List of television stations in Massachusetts. List of newspapers in Massachusetts. And list of radio stations in Massachusetts. There are 2 major television media markets located in Massachusetts. The Boston, Manchester market is the 5th largest in the United States, 436. The other market surrounds the Springfield area. 437 WGBH-TV in Boston is a major public television station and produces national programs such as Nova, Frontline, and American Experience. 438, 439, the Boston Globe, Boston Herald, Springfield Republican, and the Worcester Telegram and Gazette are Massachusetts' largest daily newspapers. 440. In addition, there are many community dailies and weeklies. The Associated Press maintains a bureau in Boston, and local news Wire the State House News Service feeds coverage of state government to other Massachusetts media outlets. There are a number of major AM and FM stations which serve Massachusetts, 441 along with many more regional and community-based stations. Some colleges and universities also operate campus television and radio stations and print their own newspapers.